This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we're fortunate tonight to have as our guest the mayor of Pike Road, Alabama, Gordon Stone. Pike Road is the fastest growing city in Alabama, and here in the river region, most of our viewers are, and we're very fortunate tonight to have Gordon Stone take time out of his busy schedule. He wears several hats. He's not only the mayor of Pike Road, he's also head of the Higher Education Foundation in the state. And Gordon, good to have you on the show.
Thank you, Steve. My pleasure.
Gordon's been on before, but we want to start as though we never have done it before, Gordon, and let folks know the story of Pike Road, Alabama, because it is a real story. It is indeed the fastest growing town in Alabama, and you've been the mayor for quite a few years. Now, how many years?
First elected in 2004, so I'm on my 15th year. What a blessing that's been.
People identify you with Pike Road, and when they see you, they say Pike Road. But you and your dear wife were out there before it was a town.
We moved out. It's interesting in how that all happened. Growing up in a small town in Alabama, and both Ellen and I both, my hometown's a little smaller than hers.
Pineapple, she's
Pineapple, and she was from Ozark. But we just wanted to be in that same kind of atmosphere, so we moved to Pike Road. And the day we moved in, we got a knock on the back door, and it was our neighbor who said, "Hey, we're going to petition, or we are petitioning to incorporate, and we need some signatures, and we need 2 more. Would y'all sign this?"
On the very day y'all moved?
The very first night we slept
Do
in our
y'all still
house.
live in that same house?
We do. And so we signed the form, and then we went to the meeting, and we discovered quite an exciting occurrence with the whole incorporation process, and we're a part of watching that happen. Some great legal work done by the team in Pike Road that was executing the process. But from there, 3 years later, actually, that was in 1997. 3 years later, they asked me if I would be willing to be on the council, and I think we had a council member who had moved away, and I said, sure, I'd be glad to do that. And so we literally, my first time I went to a council meeting, Wayne Rayburn's the mayor, and Charlene Rayburn was the clerk, and Wayne kind of walked us through what we needed to do, and one of the discussions was, well, we don't have any of the fundamentals of a town, and Central Alabama Regional Planning was asked to come in and help us organize all the basic things you need to do to meet the statutory requirements of a municipality. So we had to do our planning documents. We had to do all of our zoning work, and so right as I was coming on, Wayne decided that he wouldn't continue as mayor, but that he would go be a member of the council, and Miss Judy Rittenauer became the mayor in 2000. And so Wayne was a council member, but therefore was able to he wasn't councilman, he went to the planning commission, as chair of the planning commission, so he was able to help us put together all of the documents for zoning and subdivision regs, etc. So we went through a process of exploring what Tallahassee was doing, what Troy was doing, what Auburn was doing, what Montgomery was doing, and what other places were doing, and developed kind of a best case scenario from all of those for Pike Road. We adopted a mission statement. We did our first planning documents for the little 2-mile area that ran from 231 over to the historic center of Pike Road, where the railroad tracks crossed the toll road, and that was the basic part of Pike Road. And as each kind of part of that process evolved, we would find that people would come to us and say, hey, we'd like to join in. We'd like to be a part of that. And so we grew very slowly, but steadily during that time frame. It was really fascinating, those early years.
Well, now, the Pike Road, the current Pike Road, and I think it was planned this way, is a pretty big encompassed area.
Yes, and what happened there, we're 16 miles wide and 10 miles deep now. we at that time were about 2 miles wide and about a half a mile deep. But what happened in 2004, as we had finished most of that planning work, there were some properties that in Montgomery County is unique in that the city of Montgomery was the only municipality, so the city of Montgomery had some extra zoning authorities outside of their city limits because of that. So we had some properties that were coming to the planning stage in the unincorporated part of the county, and as we had incorporated our little area and become the second municipality, some of those folks were saying, well, hey, we live in the Pike Road Rural Mail District where the mail is carried to, we're in the 36064, we'd like to get into the town. And so Charlene and I, Ms. Rayburn, went to a meeting where those folks had gathered together, and we said, well, if y'all are interested, come see us the next Monday night at our council meeting. And 40 people showed up. And at that meeting, they asked to be included in the town. Well, in Alabama, there are only 3 ways that you can incorporate or annex property into your incorporation. And one of those is contiguous, which is how most of it happens. If your property borders property that's already in a town, then you can just ask and the town can bring you in. The other one is a referendum, but in a small population area, the referendum is a very complicated process where you have to have a certain number of signatures per every quarter section. It's very complicated. So that wouldn't work. So the third way, the only way that it would work was if we went to the legislature and asked them to work with us. And because the legislature, because we don't have home rule in Alabama, which basically means a lot of authority is based at the legislative level, the legislature does hold the third way to annex, which is the ability to annex property on behalf of a town. So they can literally just assign it. So we went to them and said, hey, we've got these people that would like to come in. Would y'all be willing to help us? And they said, sure. But this regular session, because that was in the spring of '04, this regular session is coming to an end. We don't have time because we had to advertise a local bill. So we knew the Governor Riley at the time, was about to propose a health care session later that summer. So we put everything on hold and we waited. And as the summer began to kind of roll through, Charlene got on the phone and started notifying some of her other friends that weren't in that original 40. And by the time we got ready to do that in the special session, we had 900 people who wanted to come in. Now, we were around the 300 number before. So suddenly, when we went to the legislature and asked them to do this, and they ultimately agreed, we went from a small group of 2 miles of property, all contiguous, right there with about 300 people, to about 12 miles wide and 1,300 people. Now that was right in the 04 area. Ms. Rittenauer, Ms. Judy said, I don't think I want to run again for mayor. Since you've been part of all this, would you run? So I said, sure, I'll run. And next thing you know, we had a town of 1,300 people, Steve.
And what year was that, 2004?
2004. What
is the projected population now?
Well, right now we're at about 10,000.
So 2019.
Yeah, about 10,000.
That's one of the largest cities in Alabama. People around 10,000, a lot of people.
Right, and it actually, I think, we're the third largest in the river region as far as population base. People don't realize that either. But what happened from '04 till today, though, is sequenced really in blocks. You could look at different blocks because one of the things that we really, I think, most benefited from was we invited citizens to come we sent a letter to every citizen. We said, if you'll come to the Pike Road Baptist Church, we'd like to get your input on what you want us to do. This was in the early part of '05. And there were a multitude of ideas thrown up on boards, and we went through all those, but we ended up with what we call our 4 principal priorities, which ultimately we call our 4 pillars, and a mission statement. And that mission statement was already crafted earlier, but it was reinforced at that meeting. And the mission was simply to maintain the character while planning for progress. And then the 4 pillars, as they've come to be known now, were planning, know where you're going and what you're going to look like when you get there, because so many places kind of seem to just grow randomly. Number 2, understand that quality of life is why most people moved out to that area originally. what can you do to maintain quality of life? Number 3 would be have good services, but do them in an efficient way. And number 4 was to attempt to address, or hopefully successfully address, the issue of public education in our community. So we set out to understand when you're scattered, and one of the characteristics that was unique about Pike Road back then was that when we did that legislative annexation, not all the properties were contiguous, because that's why we couldn't do it the regular way. So we had sort of these pockets of property. And as we looked at that, we covered really the whole crescent from I-85 around to 231 on that eastern part of Montgomery County. So with that in mind, we started, well, first thing we did was we said, well, if you're going to plan for growth, you've got to plan recognizing all of that territory. So we hired a group called Placemakers, which was a company out of Providence, Rhode Island, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Miami, Florida. And they had offices there, and they sent a team here, and they showed us how to grow a community grow this community from this scattered group to a township. And so we began to learn amazing lessons that none of us really knew anything about. And they began to point us toward places like Franklin, Tennessee, and places around Charleston, South Carolina, outside of Austin, Texas, in that area. And we started learning what made those places unique. And we also were told to think about the things that have sustainable value, that increase property values and make you want to invest in an area, and think about how what would do that for you. So we started putting all that together and ended up with some really unique programming and products in the planning area.
Tell me about the school, the planning for the school, and where you are with the school and everything.
Well, the planning for the school really paralleled the planning for the community, and how
you got to have a good school.
How that worked was well, obviously in my role with higher education, I had been a part of some statewide initiatives to do some things to generate more revenue for schools, and recognizing that schools must be well funded if they're going to be successful public schools. One of the things we did was we knew that people wouldn't support extra funding for a school system if they didn't believe in it, didn't have confidence in it. So if I could, I'll just kind of walk you a parallel track, because the planning model and the school model followed each other.
Did the consulting firm advise y'all?
No, the original consulting firm really just helped us set up the planning side. And one of the things they told us was that you have all these rural agriculturally based communities, Cecil, Wall, Mount Meigs, Mary, Matthews, the Rolling Hills area, the Trotman Road area, and said what you should do is you should not lose those. That you don't really need a downtown Pike Road. You should think about creating a model that allows for villages or community centers to grow, and from that evolve your township. So we started doing that. Well, one of the things that makes a community whole is ability to bring people together, right? Because if you don't come together, you can't really relate and connect. So the planning team then said, well, if you got all these little villages or hubs, town centers as we call them, then you need something to connect them, and they helped us think about connecting them with trails. So we had a 30-mile trail network that we put together with some consultants from Auburn in the School of Landscape Architecture. So we had that. And then what is the one thing that you want everybody to rally around? And that would be your high school, your sports teams, your theater programs, your parades, whatever it is that your school's doing. That gives you something for all these little communities or all these town centers to come together with. So planning, so they told us all that, but then they kind of backed out. Now on the planning side, so what we began to do is we began to tell that story. And landowners, whether it be large farm landowners or small individual lot owners, because at the time we had about 10 to 12 rural neighborhoods that had come up in the county, but there were some more that were starting. So we ended up with about 20 neighborhoods in that original model. But we would go to those neighborhoods and we'd have meetings and we'd talk about how planning and schools relate and how recreation and trails relate. And people just started, amazingly, Steve, just saying, we want to be in, we want to be in. So we grew very fast, but probably within the next 3 years, we were up to 2,600 people, and almost doubled in size.
Students or population?
Population. And then as that population grew, that gave us more realization that we could make this school possible. Because that was enough people, and now under Alabama law, to have a public school, option in your area. You can either join in the county system and have your own school there, but then you have to be responsive to the county board, or you can create your own city system. So we thought, well, we'd be better served if we can create a city system where the board's responsive to the citizens of our community.
Do you have a local school board?
We do, because we're a municipal school system.
Are they elected or appointed by the school?
Appointed by the council. And that was one of the key characteristics that people said would make it advantageous. So we
5 members.
5 members. So we set that plan in place to create a city school system, but we had to have 5,000 residents. So that then led us to planning model, school model, and then the quality of life component of those 3 pillars, right? And so quality of life was a big part of this. When you thought you had the trail network that they had recommended, so you started thinking about, well, what else can we do to add to the quality of life component of the town that'll help people want to get in? Because not everybody thought the school idea was necessarily a great idea because they may not have kids in the school. So we started thinking about the agricultural heritage, the beauty of the area, the things that we could do with art, and just a whole conglomeration of things that we started putting together in what we call our Enhance initiative. So we had a quality of life program going, we had a school education vision going, and we had a planning model going. We were the first community in the whole state of Alabama to adopt what's called Smart Code, which is a unique style of development. If you've ever seen the Waters in Pike Road, it is a multi-use community where you have mixed use in different, on the same block, a little different than you would have in your traditional crossroads. That's what Smart Code allows you to do. So we had some unique tools. So we just started visiting. We visited those neighborhoods that were in place. We visited those people who had potential to bring in neighborhoods, and folks started signing up. All the way to we got up about 2008. Well, about 2008, we were right at 3,800 to 4,000 people, excuse me. And at that point, we began to realize we needed some additional revenue. And it happens that Home Depot had built a store out in the county. It was between Montgomery and Pike Road. And we were just about to them in territory, touching them. And we needed just a couple more parcels to touch them, but we needed to know if they would come in. So a group of us flew out to Texas, where they had their headquarters for this region, met with them, told them the story. They agreed to come in. That gave us more revenue. We had quite a little legal tussle with Montgomery over whether we could do that or not, but we ultimately got them into Pike Road, and then Walmart across the street built, and they came in. So they gave us revenue. We had a recreation, a quality of life plan. We had a plan for growth, and we had a school plan. The only thing missing as we got to about 2010 was we had to separate from Montgomery County Schools, because you can't just form a city school system until you separate. But to be legal in separating, you have to have 5,000 people in your community. So we had that last final push, and we had to meet that goal by the 2010 census. What we had to do was we had to figure out how to bring together the population base around a central theme, because we knew we had to have revenue. So we started visiting other school systems. We visited other states that had other kinds of schools. So people would go on these field trips. They would get excited about it. 2010 was a big year. We met the census goals of 5,000 people because those same people who believed in what we were doing in the school, believed in our planning, and believed in our quality of life, went door to door and conducted a census and counted their citizenry, their neighbors, to come up with a total number of people that we had in our town. We met all the thresholds. 2010, we were able to separate. We were able to move forward. 2011, we had to have revenue. So we took on the challenge of having a property tax in Pike Road. We hired great consultants, Dr. Ed Richardson, Dr. Ira Harvey, Dr. Kayvon Darabi, to help us understand what that meant, what it would do for the community. Had a really interesting, thorough debate that went on for about a year, but ultimately the citizens adopted it at a 55-45, a 10% margin of success, and we had the revenue, appointed a school board, hired a superintendent, started the school in 2014. We built our first campus with some donated land from citizens. That campus we thought we'd have about 850 students. People continued to move, people continued to grow, neighborhoods began to happen. We ended up with over 1,000 that first year. We quickly began
What grades was that?
This was K-8.
Uh-huh.
Quickly began to look for a way that immediately.
Now, where was that school? It's not the Waters.
It's a school off of Marlow Road out
Okay.
near the Waters. But we began to understand that we had to have a second option. So we went back to the original Pike Road School, which had been bought by a church that had been closed by the county when they consolidated schools. This is way back in 1970 that they closed it. We bought that school back from the church.
Is it the Georgia Washington School?
No, that was the old historic Pike Road School. Had it renovated, opened it, and 2 years later, and put the middle school or the old upper classes in it. And then last year, in 2017, 2018, we started negotiating for the Georgia Washington School, one of the most historic schools in the county because of Miss Washington and what she meant to education through her legacy, and we're able to get that into the Pike Road group.
Now, what grades
last year.
were there?
It was a junior high school there at the time, but now it's a part of our school system. So now we have 3 campuses. We have our high school at the Georgia Washington campus, we have our middle school at the historic campus, and our elementary school in the original campus that we built. Of 1,800 kids, K through 11. Next year we'll have K-12. From 2010 to 2019, that model has gone from separating to a point now where it's one of the most respected school systems in the central part of the state, and we feel like soon will be recognized as one of the greatest school systems in the whole state of Alabama.
Well, now, has your high school started yet?
Next year. Well, the high school started, but we'll finish our K-12 next year. First graduating class will be 2020.
Oh, y'all have a sports already and everything?
Already playing. The football team was in the state playoffs this year. Basketball team.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Went to the.
What classification is it?
We're 3A this year.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What are some of the schools y'all play around here?
Oh my goodness, we play a lot of some of the local
private
schools. We play in a region that goes east of here, so it's a great competition. We played. We played Dadeville, for instance. We've had a lot of the towns that you would know.
What's
about.
y'all's schools?
The Patriots.
Yeah.
Pike Road Patriots. But we've continued all that time, Steve, as you talk about the school thing, to try to parallel the planning. So we've continued to do planning work. We've hired a company out of Nashville that's actually worked with us over the last 10 plus years that has helped us make sure our planning model is growing with the community. So it's not just residents, but it's also strategic. We've done a full comprehensive plan of the entire community that's been adopted by the citizens. It's a great illustration of what you can do. We've continued to grow our quality of life program, creating a whole community development division within the town that's staffed, and they have ongoing 9 community committees that are engaged and do everything from bringing our churches together in what we call the prayer team to working together with our with community enrichment projects. We have a Lions Club, for instance, and they're hosting a yard sale coming up. We do spring cleanups with different groups around the town through community enrichment. We have a neighborhood leaders organization where all the leaders of all the neighborhoods come together and discuss things that are important. We have an agriculture and natural resource or stewardship committee that works on bringing people together to participate in livestock events or in learning how to garden or an amazing array of things that we partner with Extension Service with them a lot. We have a arts council that's just opened an arts house that hosts a plein air paint out every year. That's one of the most popular destinations for artists from all over the country. We've got a Recreation and Health Services Committee that's done everything from a half marathon to hosting wellness expos. So that quality of life component we continue to grow with, continue to grow the planning model, and our services. One of our best kept secrets, I think, was when we did all that early planning work. One of the things we learned about municipalities that we wanted to emulate was that they had discovered the value of outsourcing. I'll never forget being in Clearmont, Florida, and meeting the sheriff down there who was patrolling in the city. And I asked him why a sheriff was doing that versus a city policeman. And he said, well, we subcontract that. We do that for the city. And he said, it's great. We help them save money on courts and on judges and on all the administrative overhead, and they help supplement what we do. So we went to the Sheriff's Department, talked to Montgomery County. They said great, but we have 10. That just says a lot about the people of Pike Road. 10 volunteer fire stations. Great volunteer fire coverage. We have, our ISO rating is as good as most municipalities, or better than most municipalities have full-time fire departments. We have an amazing response time for our ambulance service. Again, our policing and patrol coverage is phenomenal. We don't own a bulldozer. We don't own a dump truck. We outsource our road improvement projects, and we have the great support of the citizens. We have an ongoing annual budget, an ongoing program for updating streets and updating our roads. We've had a great relationship with AlDOT, so we've been very fortunate with that. So we've outsourced a lot. We outsource all of our utilities. We have 2 gas providers, 2 electrical providers, 2 sewer providers, which has been unique and fascinating to watch, but it's been a blessing to, again, it keeps competition, helps the people of Pike Road. So, in all those 4 pillars that citizens said in 2005 they wanted, they've continued to be incrementally more successful, and that's just encouraged more people to come. And so why are we the fastest growing place in Alabama? Because now we have 70 neighborhoods from that original 10, 15 to 20. Now we have opportunities throughout that 16-mile wide area for people to move and live. All of those citizens in the community go to the ball games. Can you imagine a high school team that doesn't even have a full complement of grades having 1,500 people at a high school football game? Well, just imagine what it would feel like if it was at a middle school.
Is y'all stadium?
We had 1,500 people at a middle school football game.
Are y'all the stadium's out by the school at the water?
We are in the no. We're in the process right now. We just passed our 3rd bond issue, which I'm very proud of our council and our leadership team and our staff for all the hard work they do, because we've had a AA+ bond rating every year for 3 years, and that new bond issue that we just passed allowed us to invest money in more classrooms, in creating our athletic complex, and in renovating the Georgia Washington School. And we're actually in the process right now of constructing a football, baseball, softball field on the Georgia Washington campus. Yeah. We're also doing a municipal complex out off of Trotman Road for agriculture, recreation, and performing arts will be
off 231.
Off 231. Yeah, that's going to be a great complement to our quality of life program. We're doing more trails. We've got a nice entrepreneurship project that is on the drawing board, a cultural diversity project on the drawing board. We've got as I said, the Arts Council has a new house now that they're operating out of. They outgrew all of our offices. So it's really an amazing experience to be the mayor of a place where citizens have a vision and they just continue to work that vision themselves to make it successful. And it's a blessing. I just thank the Lord every day to have been able to be a part of walking this walk and learning all the things that I've gotten a chance to learn, and working with all these passionate, engaged people.
You know, Gordon, one of the things I've noticed, to get back to politics a little bit, is your representative and senators are natives of that area, and actually were some of the stalwart early members of the volunteer fire department. Will Barfoot and Reed Ingram both were
we've got
volunteer firemen and were active, and they were the county commissioner from that area.
Well, Reed was for sure.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of interest in being involved from day one in our community. You know, Pike Road, the whole history of Pike Road goes back to the federal road.
That's right.
And people were able to travel through our area, and certain families settled there because of the beauty of the land. That's why we've put a great emphasis on agriculture in our quality of life program. We don't want to lose that. Go back to that mission statement. Maintain the character while planning for progress. So that's why along our trail you're going to see signage that's going to point to some of the natural resource advantages or blessings that we've had. We are very aware that economic development is critical to long-term success for any community. And so part of our strategy is to think about how you grow your community in combination with your natural gifts. If you think about the Wiregrass and what comes north to where we are, or all the way to the Chattahoochee to the 231, there's such a rich agricultural heritage there. And we can be a window to that through the interstates and the major thoroughways that come through our area. So we're trying to put together an economic development plan that matches some of that, as well as grows our retail and our local businesses too. But so it's fascinating, the history that goes back to those roots, and so people have always been engaged. So way before the town became a known commodity, the Arts and Crafts Festival was traveled to by people from all over the South, and would have 10 to 15,000 people come to the Pike Road community before it was a Pike Road town every fall, and that was hosted by a civic group. So, and it still is, by the way. We still have that kind of exciting energy. We've got 100% parent membership in our PTA.
Wow!
How about that? Isn't that amazing? So. I certainly, I say all these things because I'm proud of Pike Road and I'm passionate about Pike Road, but really to compliment the people of Pike Road, because that's what's allowed all of this to happen. That and God's blessing. The Lord has certainly blessed us.
One thing that as an outside observer may observe, you have had a tremendous growth in residential. Are there complaints or asked questions about we'll get more retail, like Lowe's
Absolutely.
and Walmart?
Well, we've got the Home Depot and the Walmart that are there.
They're in y'all city
and
limits.
It's interesting because in the whole deal for settling with the trying to separate from the county, one of the things we did was we went back to some of those original lawsuits that Montgomery filed. Remember, I've said there was some contentiousness about how when we had the big legislative growth, we ultimately settled on that and created a joint tax district there on the Chantilly. So those actually are shared revenues between Home Depot and Walmart.
That's joint property
Between Montgomery and Pike Road. But we have an assertive effort ongoing, if you think about our planning model, to try to find the right retail fits for those town centers. The changing dynamics of today's retail business are making it a challenge for every community across the country to figure out how they're going to grow retail. When so many people are shopping on their phone they're having things delivered to their address, that has created a different measuring stick for retailers who traditionally would come in and say, you get a big box, we'll take the second box, or we'll take the third box, or we'll take the front parcel. Well, if you can't have the confidence that you can sell box 2, 3, 4, or the front parcels, then the big box is not as likely to come in. Or if the big box is feeling competition because their product happens to be sold online, then they're going to have that challenge. Now that there is a federal move as well as a state move to put some kind of revenue attachment to help locals with the online sales, those dynamics are going to allow retailers, I think, to begin to look a little bit more back at a local store or a local brick and mortar facility. But we're aware and very interested in partnering with businesses. We have the perfect locations. We've got some property that is what they call user ready. We've got ongoing dialogue with grocery stores. We've got ongoing dialogue with food vendors, and it's just kind of a matter of the chicken and the egg. And I think for us, we are excited about the residential growth. We know that ultimately is going to bring the other complements. But what we tell everybody, and I've had this conversation with developers many times, is that we love to have you in Pike Road. Just keep in mind that we want the things that you do here to have greater value in 25 years than they do today. Now, that doesn't mean your business may necessarily be in the same location, but make sure the investment in that property continues to increase in value. And if you think about places around the country that are desirable places today that were desirable 100 years ago or will be desirable 50 to 100 years from now, that's the way they think. They want to make sure there's sustainable value. And that doesn't mean every product or every project has to be a home run. It just means that you want to think about them and strategically plan for them to have that kind of lasting impact.
Gordon looks like to me, because I travel that road almost every day and pass by the new store that Readingham started, which has been very successful. That seems like a corridor that would be a natural place to have just shopping mall
Well,
or
I
something,
think
or some kind of little strip mall or something there, because you hit the 231 traffic.
Well, think about the value, the advantage that we have in where we're
You
located.
own that land. I mean, you're sitting not owning it, but y'all city limits.
Well, where we're located has the outer loop that will be the bypass around the city of Montgomery that will connect all the Atlanta to the beach traffic, all the trucking traffic that goes south to 10, which, as you know, Interstate 10 goes from one end of the country to the other. So if you want to get across on an interstate to Los Angeles, if you're going from Atlanta to Los Angeles, you go down and get on 10 and go across. So all of that will come through Pike Road. That's why the outer loop is very important to us. Now, as that grows, that's going to create opportunities for us. We have the 4-lane access to Highway 231, which creates a unique combination for us for a couple of things. One, obviously for business growth, but two, it puts us within 30 minutes of Troy University, which is a great resource for us, a great opportunity for us to capitalize on education for every single citizen. One of our goals is that every citizen that goes through the Pike Road Public School will believe that they can achieve their dreams and will have access to the kind of educational full complement, including higher education, that ultimately will allow them to achieve those dreams. So we've got that. So 231 is important for a business corridor. It's important for an economic development corridor. It's important even potentially for some additional residential corridor. The loop will be important for all of that too, because it has 4 interchanges that are in the Pike Road area. And on top of that, we've got the 85 corridor, which is 35 minutes from Auburn.
Exactly.
And we've got Highway 80, which is 20 minutes from Tuskegee. And then if you go just into the city, you've got AUM and Alabama State. So you've got such a wonderful complement of the kinds of support systems that are necessary to create a new economy, a new dynamic for the future. We've got on our northwest side of Pike Road, the eastern part of Montgomery, you've got the Baptist East complex out there, so you've got medical care that's out close to us. There's a whole whole list of reasons why the future in economic and retail and community growth in Pike Road to complement the residential is going to be exciting. But I have to remind myself, and I try to remind everybody that comes to see us, that it's taken us from 1997 to now to get to where we are. Now that's 22 years. In the average lifetime of a person, working lifetime, maybe 40 years. So half of the average working lifetime's been spent getting to here. Now in the history of a municipality though, that's lightning fast to get to do what we've done in that short time frame. But in the scope of our own personal lives, so we have to monitor our impatience. I do, and because I'd like everything to happen tomorrow, but in reality, it takes time. And so the retail will catch up with the residential. If we do it right, it'll be a wonderful complement. And we're just going to do everything we can do to be as on top of that and as in the game as we can be to make sure that we are bringing and attracting the right kind of fits for Pike Road.
That 231 and also the outer loop, you're situated perfectly.
We've got a lot of compliments, you know. We can help. I think be a real positive complement to the city of Montgomery. We provide some things that are harder for the city to provide. The city provides some great things for us that we can't provide. You know, I don't know that Pike Road will ever be the place where somebody will want to come and build a convention center. Might be, but wow, what an opportunity we have with Impact and the biscuits and all that to complement quality of life. You know, with what we have at all of our Division I athletic programs that are around us, at Alabama State and at Troy and at Auburn, you can go any direction you want to go on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night in the fall and see a football game, or 2 or 3 nights a week to basketball games and at the top level of collegiate sports. You know, but we also can provide some things because we're easy access to all of those.
Yeah.
So we're very, very divinely blessed.
Well, it's been a great story, and I'm glad to know more about the school situation. I think schools, that's not the only ingredient that makes for growth, but
well, the school,
that's what attracts people.
One of the things about the school model in Pike Road that I was telling you earlier, it kind of paralleled our planning. When we first ventured off on the path of talking about doing a school, it was a few of us that sat around actually sat at a local restaurant and wrote up on a sheet of white paper what we thought would need to be done to create a school system. And we went to the legislature and asked them to help us do a school in Pike Road, like the School of Fine Arts and the School of Math and Science, that would be a unique school in Pike Road for the state for an excellence in teaching. And when we did that, the legislature said, no, we got enough of that. No, we don't need another one of those. So we backed off, we went back and we started over and we said, well, we're going to have to do a city school system then. Because we didn't originally want to break out of the county. We thought we could do something kind of cool in the Pike Road area. And the state didn't have the charter school model at that time. So that was a much longer process. But in the early discussions of that School for Excellence in Teaching, we had some visitors from Auburn University. A lady named a lady from the Truman Pierce Institute named Cindy Reed came over and said, hey, we'd like to invite you to go with us to a conference and talk about this, the Holmes Partnership. And we went to their conference, and I presented what we were thinking about for excellence in teaching in this new community. And they taught us about this model for educational growth called professional development schools. And the Holmes Partnership was made up of over 50 of the top colleges of education in the country. And so we came back from that, formed a committee in Pike Road of 60 residents. And those 60 residents, we got the trilogy of books written by the Holmes Partnership about how to redefine and re-engineer schools in this PDS model. And we took that, and this committee started working, and I'll never forget walking in the old town hall. The new town hall is there at the corner of Pike and Baum, but the old town hall was over at the corner of where Wallahatchie and Meriwether and Pike came together. And I went in there one day, and this committee was meeting, and all these educators and people who were volunteering from Troy University, volunteering from Alabama State, volunteering from AUM, were in there, and the walls were filled with big flip chart pages that they'd torn out and taped to the wall, and they ended up writing an entire model of a curriculum. And so we took that, and we started talking to the Holmes people about where does something like this exist, and they introduced us to a school in Gainesville, Florida called the P.K. Young School. So we went down and met with them, got so excited about what they were doing, came back and organized a tour. Took a busload of people from Pike Road down to Gainesville, and we sat down in Gainesville with the P.K. Young School leadership and learned what they did. Came back, hosted town meetings all over Pike Road, invited those people to come with us this time, and brought in people from West Virginia and Texas to join them. And they started telling us about how this unique type of school was done. It created a vision for an innovative, different thinking school system, which then parlayed itself, as we've done everything we've done up till today, to have this blend of traditional learning with problem solving, real world engagement in the school children and school kids in their learning process. So we've grown to where our school system is different, but it's the same. It's just giving kids a unique way to apply and grow in their learning. We hired a superintendent that was really enthused by and energized by that concept. When she left, we brought in this superintendent who had been in Georgia as well as in other places in Alabama, had great history of both project-based learning as well as traditional learning, and he's created a great complementary role for all of our teachers and all of our parents to work together to make this successful, and that's why you see 100% involvement in the PTA. It's been phenomenal, and it's been organic, and it's been citizen engaged, and it's been fun to watch. I told somebody early on in my part of this process, we were trying to sell the vision and create energy. Now we're trying to make sure we patiently apply our energy so we don't get in front of ourselves, but we still don't ever limit ourselves.
Your population age is probably younger than the national.
Average age is about 39.
Wow. Mm-hmm. How many students do you have in your school system?
1,850 this year. We'll go over 2,000 probably by next year.
Wow. By 2025, what is your projection on the school?
Well, the school project that we're working on now, according to the superintendent of the school board, we should be good for classrooms up through the next 5 to 7 years, maybe even 10. So we're excited about that. I don't know what their numbers are showing, but they've run all those projections. And our job at the city level, once we form the school board, has been to kind of back off and let school people run the school. It's been fun to watch, but to be there to be supportive. You know, one of the things that I'm really proud of our town for is that we've adopted some revenue streams, and we adopted that revenue stream that we adopted to make sure that we invested appropriately in education. And you know that what we were able to do and have been able to do with that, Steve, is sell 3 bonds at AA+ ratings that produced enough revenue that we could build one campus, buy and renovate a second campus, buy and now renovate a third campus, and build a complement of athletic facilities. And we've done all of that without the school system having any. They have 0 capital debt.
Wow.
Because the town's been able to do that for them.
And a great bond rating. Let me ask this question. When you were sitting there 10 years ago in 2000, or say 15 years ago, when someone knocked on your door when you and Ellen moved in your house in 2004, and they wanted you to go to the meeting to sign the petition, and here you are almost exactly 15 years later, what would you say if somebody said,
I can tell you a true story about that.
10 years and 15 years, and this is what's going to be big.
Well, it actually, to give you get the dates in order, we were first moved in 97. Somebody knocked on the door, got on the council, and we were literally so early in this process that we didn't even have any ordinances. So we had to do all of that. When I became mayor in 2004, when Miss Judy said she wasn't going to run again, and she asked me if I would run, I went home that night. We met in a church, Peace Baptist Church, on a little dirt road. That's where we were meeting at the time. And I told Ellen, I said, you know, Miss Judy would like me to run for mayor. I said, I think I'm going to do it. You know, we just meet once a month, and it's just one night a month. And I'll never forget that. Ellen doesn't forget that either. But you know, now we have every service that you could find anywhere in any other municipality. We do it at a level that has maintained a very, very manageable pension liability, a very, very positive. We've never had a bad audit. Praise the Lord for that. We've had the abilities to have some of the greatest partners, companies in engineering, companies in design, companies in planning, companies in economic development, companies in the legal world that are all partnered with Pike Road and are like staff people, except we don't have to, they're not staff. We were able to recruit really exciting, young, talented people who, you know, and this is an interesting statistic or feature. Every employee that we've hired at Pike Road, every single employee is still there with the exception of 4. One left because she got married and her husband lived somewhere else. Another one left because she changed from communication to legal profession. Another one left to go work for the school. And then another one left because he actually lived in Auburn and his wife had a baby and he wanted to be closer to the child. But everybody's still there. What a wonderful compliment to the people we've been able to bring in and the exciting opportunities they have been able to make for themselves. We don't operate like a traditional municipality because we learned from so many people how to do things a little bit differently. And I don't say that because we're better than anybody by any means. Every municipality, we are so blessed. I know every mayor in the River Region, and we are so blessed to have great leadership, great places in this area, complementary to each other. Every community in Pike Road surrounding area brings value to this River Region, and I couldn't be any more proud to work with those folks. But our way of doing things is a little different and a little unique.
Let me ask you this. Pike Road, as you mentioned, depends a lot on volunteer fire departments, and also, I know you supplement them, but you're being law enforced by the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. It's a pretty big area,
right?
Geographical area, right. And you're asking citizen, layman, firemen to take it. Do you foresee one day you're going to have a
well, I think what happens,
full-time fire department and full-time police department? Are y'all foreseeing that? You
What
can't
everybody,
continue to do
what
that?
everybody has to do is, if you're in the business that we're in, and that's a really interesting question.
That's a big geographical area.
Well, that's a really interesting question because most people don't get to start a town from scratch. So I get the question all the time, when are y'all going to have a police force? Well, and this is not meant to be a smart aleck answer, but we'll have a police force when we need a police force. By that I mean we want to grow the natural way to the point that the resources are there and the need is there, that they merge together at the right time. So will we at some point in time have a full-time fire department? We might. We very well might. We may have our own police department, and we may have our own officers patrolling the roads and the streets. But right now, we have a beautiful relationship with the volunteers.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
are great service, unbelievable response times, unbelievable courage and bravery.
You're saying even the ISO rates are the same as if you had a fire.
Better than a lot of people with full-time fire departments. So what we've discovered though is
Any
that,
other town that has 10,000 people in Alabama has a full-time fire department.
well,
doesn't it?
but they didn't grow like we have, and they don't have the. And we have some full-time firefighters, men and women, and emergency responders, because they
They're
do
not
more
paid by
than,
Pike Road though, are
they
they?
do. Well, we've done it. Our citizens have been very positive about this. We adopted a $5 million tax that we actually appropriate to them to help them with their costs. So they do get resources.
You got a lot of timber areas still in Pike Road too, isn't it?
Not as much in the town though.
Okay.
Not as much in the town. A lot of Pike Road's area is former
It's been cleared.
cattle
then.
country.
Okay.
Cattle country.
Okay.
Cattle had some row crop years ago.
So you got a lot of Bubba Trotman's land, didn't you?
The Trotman property, the family's been really gracious and generous to come into the town, and a lot of other landowners have been really generous.
There's
And
been
we're very close right now to being able to have some more really significant announcements about our properties.
Well, good. Well, Gordon, this has been a great show. I tell you, this has covered a lot of ground. I think it's been very enlightening for me, and I'm sure a lot of people who will view this will really realize that we have questions about the growth and exponential growth and the prosperity of Pike Road.
Well, we've been fortunate.
One thing,
but you know what,
the
our best
geographical thing too is very important. Where you're in the interchange of outer loop and interstates, you're surrounded. It was a natural place for a town if you think about it.
And what we want to do is not lose our character, though. We've got a great plan. We've got great people helping us make that plan work. We've got great council members who checks and balances there. But what I really, really respect and anticipate is that we will be able to maintain that character. And that doesn't mean everything's going to look the same. That's not the goal. The goal is that it'll be of quality. And that's what will make people continue to want to be a part of Pike Road, and will allow those different geographical areas to continue to grow together, will allow us to be able to attract those kind of businesses and that kind of economic to job opportunities and other things that are going to come. But we have to remember, Steve, 97 to now is 22 years. Go 22 years forward, 2029, 39, 2041. It's going to take some time, but it should take time. We've been fast, but we've also been respectful of what we need to do. And so I think it'll be fun to watch. And I've been blessed to be the mayor. I've been thankful for every time people have reelected me, and I'm looking forward to continuing to serve and do what I can to make sure that our little community continues to be a little community no matter what size it is.
Well, the story of Pike Road's a tremendous story, and I know the viewers here in the River region have enjoyed hearing the story because you've been there from the get-go and part of the whole process. We thank you viewers for watching. Hope this has been enlightening for you about the story of Pike Road with basically the founding father, Gordon Stone. And our viewers know he'll probably give you his phone number like Twinkle gives hers out.
I don't mind at all. You want to call me? You want me to do it?
He has a full-time job being mayor of Pike Road. We thank you,
Just call the town hall. They will. I'll return every phone call. That'd be the easiest way to do it.
Good deal. We thank you, viewers, for watching. We thank Mayor Gordon Stone for being with us, and hope you tune in again next week for Alabama Politics. Thank you, Gordon.
My pleasure.